Hi, I'm Natalie Kolbeck, the author of Artful Adventures in Mixed Media, and I'm here today with Seth Apter, who I really love his artwork and his personality too. And I'm super happy that he had some time today to chat with me about some things him, the artwork, some stuff in the book, and more. Hey, Seth.
Hey Nat, thanks so much for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. How's it going?
Oh, it's going really well. I always love to talk to you and catch up, so this is going to be fun.
Well, it better be.
Or else.
So, for those of the listeners and viewers that don't know Seth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Seth Apter. I live in New York City, and I am a mixed media artist. That's what I call myself anyway. And in addition to doing the work creating art, I also teach and travel a lot to teach. And I have a number of companies I work with that license my designs and create product. And I have some books and some DVDs out there. And, I try to keep my hand in a lot of different aspects of the art world.
Yeah, that's true. And I will link up to Seth, but check out his books and DVDs too. If you can't take a workshop from Seth in person, definitely very worth to check it out. So
Thanks for the plug.
True that, though. So, Seth, first question, very tricky. If you had lots of time and money and everything wasn't an obstacle, nothing was an obstacle, and you could go on any artful adventure, what would it be?
Wow, that's a big question. And I think a big question requires a big answer. So I'm gonna, since this is a fantasy, I'm gonna go all out. I There have been so many places that I have visited already, and many that I haven't, that I think either have inspired me if I've been there, or I think would inspire me. But my time there was not about creating. So I think what I'd really like to do is somehow make an itinerary that takes me away for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just say unrealistically a year, where I can travel and spend a good amount of time in a number of different places. So for example, I've gone to Italy a few times, but really never had been there long enough to create. And I would love to spend a month traveling around Italy, going to the museums and seeing the sights and soaking in the atmosphere, and then just going back to the studio there and just create. And then from there, unrealistically, I spent some time in New Mexico,
Yeah.
Which probably wouldn't be the next trip because it's a little far in between. But I'd want to go back there and just spend time there creating.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a million places that I haven't been that I think would just completely inspire me and also shift the way I work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would love to come home and then create something based on that.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of being able to maybe stay a month in 12 places and then come home, and I don't know if it would be a book or I don't know if it would be some sort of like YouTube series, but something I could kind of process all that I did and the experience and show the work and see where it goes, or maybe an exhibition of all the different work, something like that. So yeah, I think big and do that.
That sounds like a real good plan. I want to do that.
Yeah, we could go together.
That would be fun.
We're supposed to have an interview, but maybe we could sit down and just plan it.
Yeah, we should do that. Sorry, guys, this is going to be our travel journal. But it is true. It is so sad that, not sad, but I'm very grateful that we get to travel a lot. But oftentimes, I mentioned that to Seth before, was like, you don't really see anything. I was just I was just teaching at Artiscape in Columbus, Ohio, and I have not seen anything of Columbus, Ohio, but a hotel at a highway for 4 days. And that even happens sometimes when you go to Australia or somewhere else. You're like, you don't really see a lot. So what I like is that you get to know people from the area, and then you have this feeling that you learn a lot about where you are and about like the hearsaying about what you should
Sure.
see, right?
Yeah.
So it would be fun to take that and then go back and then like really experience it and make art based on that. That would be so cool. I agree. I've not been to New Mexico yet.
Oh, you have to go. You have to go. It's amazing there. I've spent some time in Santa Fe and in Taos, and it's just there's some. Well, first of all, as an artist, there's something about the light in Santa Fe and Taos that honestly is like I've never seen anywhere else. There's something extremely special. There's right. I teach at a place in Taos. It's at the Mabel Dodge Lewin House, and when you the structure is spectacular, but when you walk by at 10 a.m., you walk by this area. It's just beautiful adobe. There's a ladder, windows, just gorgeous sky. You take a photo because it's so spectacular. And then you walk by at 11 a.m. and it looks completely different because of the light shift. And then at 6 p.m. it's sunrise. It's everyone down there notices it, and it's really extraordinary.
That's cool. Is the Ghost Ranch there too, or am I wrong?
Say that again?
Ghost Ranch?
Oh, yes. Ghost Ranch is down there as well. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
on my list.
Trip.
That's on my list now.
Sign up.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Yeah, I've done a lot of road trips in the States because I love national parks. But I think I might have dipped my toe into New Mexico. I remember there was like one spot where we were where you can be in all four states at the same time. Like you jump.
Right.
I forgot what the point was called. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, there's a place where my geography is anything but my good suit, despite the fact that I travel so much, right? But I could draw a map.
Right.
I'd not be right, but I could draw it. But there's a place where 4 states meet. There's a corner.
Right. And I think it's 4 corners.
4 corners. Okay.
I'm not sure, but it would make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
I think that's what it is. So I have been with one foot in New Mexico.
So my question to you is: did you notice the light? Did it change when you stepped?
I have to look at the photos again. I think exactly in that corner, it was very special.
Spectacular, right?
That's funny.
It is. Your book is, just to remind everybody, it's Artful Adventures, and there's so much. The conversation that we're having it just does remind me of the book because there's just so much about adventure, and obviously you can have adventure at home, but there's so much excitement that I think you and I experience because we do have this fortunate ability to travel, to teach, and for other parts of our artwork. And it really is an adventure. And I agree with you. There are definitely times, when the world maybe seems more glamorous than it is in terms of the work that we do behind the scenes. And you go to the hotel and you don't even know what city you're in. But overall, even that ends up being an adventure. It's really, I feel very fortunate to have that.
Is there, that reminds me actually, because I was just thinking of an own story, but is there something where you travel to a place, and it doesn't have to be connected to teaching, but you traveled to a place, you had to, or you went there, but you didn't like really expect a lot, and then it just blew you away, and you were like, I'm so glad I went, and that was such a great experience and inspired me. Have you experienced something like that?
Well, most of the places that I've traveled for my own personal vacations or trips, I pretty much have chosen them because I had a sense of them. So my expectations were pretty high. But ironically, we had been just talking about this earlier. I will say, not because I didn't have an expectation, but I didn't know. I have taught in Paducah, which is in Kentucky, and I just never had been to the state. I didn't really know what Paducah was about, and so it wasn't that I had low expectations. I had no expectations, and there's a place there that I taught called Ephemeral Paducah, and it's really a beautiful place, the store. But the town itself is really exceptional. It's really unique. It's been clearly one of those towns that have been sort of over the years turned into an art center. There's amazing restaurants. There's just really great atmosphere there, and that was a surprise, because a lot of times when you go to the shops to teach, they're often either they're in a big city, or maybe because of real estate expense, they're kind of off the beaten track. So this one was a nice blend. And bizarrely enough, when I was there was a film crew that came in from one of the local papers who was doing a feature on Paducah.
Cool.
So they took photos from the class, and that ended up being online, and I think in the papers as well. And it really highlighted the amazing area there.
Cool.
So that's the first thing that comes to mind, I would say.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't mean like low expectation, but I remember like let's say one time I was invited to teach in Malaysia, and I mean, that's special, right?
Right.
But
sure.
I had no expectations, because I didn't know a lot about Malaysia, and I didn't really think about it, like how it would be. But then when I was there, I had these amazing hosts in Malaysia, and it was just the experience of living with them in their house, and how they opened their house, and how we learned so much about living there. That was like so special. I would have never expected that. So sometimes you're like, go somewhere, and I was only there for 3 days. But I have this like warm, fuzzy memory of Malaysia, So it's like I think it's often also combined with either, of course, not only what you see, but sometimes with what the people you meet, or that make that certain space like super special for you in your memory.
Absolutely. I think when you are able to connect with somebody and almost live there, even if it's for a weekend, it's a completely different experience. And, you do sort of feel welcomed and kind of cocooned, and you will probably end up seeing things that you never, ever.
Right.
I think one of the nice things about many nice things about the internet and the way that we all connect now in our community is that I know somebody in pretty much every place on earth. And so when I can, and I don't always have time, but when I can, if I'm teaching somewhere, I will try to meet somebody either that I've already met or I know, or perhaps that I just know online. And then even if it's just for 3-hour experience, you do get an insider's point of view.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. It's those are the nice, memorable events, as opposed to, being in a train station or being in the airport.
Oh yeah, these are actually the really bad memories.
Yeah, we all have our airports.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We won't actually we might have not experienced being dragged out of a plane, but we do have some experience.
We do have some other experience.
Right, exactly.
And let's hope that never happens again.
And I know.
To anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So speaking of traveling, so for the book, you did this amazing piece of work that we will talk a little bit later. But you always, or oftentimes, not always, not all the time, you don't have to be careful when Seth is around, but he covers small items while you're traveling, am I right? So what was the last thing that you brought home? What is it, and what does it remind you of?
All right, that's actually happily an easy question, because it just happened. Sorry. But if I had to think of the one before, that would be harder. But as I mentioned earlier, I live in New York City, and among other things, New York City is a mecca for trash. You know that. You're here all the time. I mean, you can find...
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's pristine and clean. I would hate it if it was pristine and clean. There's just so much stuff to be found floating everywhere, good and bad stuff. But one of the things that I love to collect, and I did this earlier this week, are, I don't even know if I have one handy to even show you, but so in New York City, they constantly sweep the streets, and they do that because of the trash buildup, like anywhere else, I guess. And so if you have a car, which I don't, you constantly have to move it to the other side of the street. So parking on, say, the south side one day, you have to move it between a certain hour to the north side, so the street sweeper can sweep. If you've ever seen it, people know it's like a symphony how people do this. But basically, the street sweeper comes in. The street sweeper is this, massive, scary beast of a machine. And the bristle pads are huge.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure my hands are going outside the screen now because they're massive.
Oh, you actually mean the actual car? I was like, you're talking about the guy.
No.
It's massive.
Not at all. No, the guys who drive, they're really nice, but they haven't run me over yet. But no, I'm talking about the machine, Natalie. They're the beasts. So we'll get back on track here.
Sorry.
The bristles are made up of hundreds of these small, thin, long, I guess, little prongs that are metal, and they fly off the machine all the time. And so it's not like I follow them and literally just pick up as they go, but on any day I can just walk down the street, down the sidewalk, and there could be anywhere from 1 or 2 to 10 or 11 of these bristles.
Wow.
And I've picked them up for years. It was quite a number of years before I even knew what they were. And then I was so excited when I figured it out.
Huh.
So I'm on eBay all the time seeing if I could buy a full bristle pad that would last me forever. Not really, but so that's the last thing I picked up. And it's so, to me, it's so New York.
Right.
A lot of my art isn't like street art or graffiti art, but it's definitely to me, it has an urban flavor to it. And so I think those bristles are really symbolic of just New York and the grit and the dirt.
Right.
The objects that are found. So I use them a lot. You can cut them up. You can rust them.
Cool.
You can stack them. Yeah, they're pretty neat.
No, they do that here too. They clean. We have the whole thing. I mean, I'm like 15 minutes away from you, kind of on the other side of the river. But so now I'm like, I have to check this out. I have to look down now. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing to collect. So you're in New York, and I probably already know the answer, but do you have a big studio?
It's massive. It's a beast of a studio.
Yeah, I know.
Do I have a big studio? I'm kind of lucky. I live in a building that the rooms are larger than average for New York. So I would not say I have a big studio, but I have a bigger space than I think I would have thought I would have had.
Yeah.
Like but New York is so bizarre because, like I have, what I think is a large studio. Someone from another state might look at it and think that's like smaller than my walk-in closet. So it's all relative. But yeah, I have a decent amount of space. But the truth is that the two things that are so true is that no matter how much space I have, I end up working in the area that's the size of my laptop screen.
Right.
If that large. And I never, ever have enough surface. I mean, surface is like so – everything is covered.
Right.
It may or may not be messy. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's neat, but there's just never space.
Right. The reason why I asked was because, when you collect a lot of stuff, then that's like real estate. Like,
well, can I show you what I kind of how I handle it? So, excuse me, technical difficulties. So I used to just have things in drawers and deep drawers, and they were just filled. And I couldn't find anything, and I use found objects so much. So I got these cabinets. They're from Bisley, and they come with these plastic inserts that you can get. I don't want to drop everything. Can you see?
Yeah.
It's just cool. Everything. It's really at this point really organized because I use these all the time. And if you work with found objects, what happens is you need to find it's almost like a puzzle, and you really have to it has to fit. So you can have a perfect object, but it may not be able to be attached to another
Right.
object. And so I'm pretty, despite the fact that I have so many things, I kind of know what I have
Mm-hmm.
because I see them so often. So there are times when I'm working on a found object piece, and I have to have that one circle that I know
Mm-hmm.
will fit underneath and be able to connect the two pieces. And if I can't find it, I basically can't go forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to have so many frustrating periods. So doing this like this, it sometimes gets a mess. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
does look, and it isn't always together right. But to have that as a basis has made a huge difference.
That's cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like those. I like those drawers. I have this old letterpress cabinet. I don't know if you can see it,
And
and it
yeah.
has like deep drawers, and it actually has also little plastic, like you
Oh
can take
yeah.
them out. And I have like three of those drawers are just full. I mean, I don't do a lot of assemblage as you do,
Yeah.
but yeah, I have like all kinds of stuff, and I know exactly. Like I did something a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I have this viewfinder. I have to find
Mhm.
it, you know. And you're like, oh, here's my drawer. It's like you can no, because you have the drawer, and you just like
So it's
open
right
it
there.
up, and you see everything right away. I love it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, we now know that while you're in New York City, you're basically like stalking the poor, massive aggressive street sweeper.
I am. Yeah.
But
Oh
what are
no.
the main elements you look for when you travel? Like, what are the main things you look for, like for collecting or for taking notes of inspiration? Like, what are for your
Okay.
work?
I well, when I can, when I travel, I if I can, I try to fit in visits to things like flea markets,
Mm-hmm.
antique shops, especially the sort of the bigger antique malls.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of vendors because there's always a good variety there. If I'm teaching at a shop, I'll look in the shop, but I'm really looking first of all for small things.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to work small, and so most of the elements that I have that I use are really quite small. So I'm always on the lookout for any kind of metal bits, anything rusted, anything that's unique or different. I do use a lot of commercial products, but
Mm-hmm.
I try to find kind of one of a kinds. So I'm always on the lookout for that
Mm-hmm.
wherever I teach, and anything because I love to layer and build up. So I particularly look for anything that has some sort of space or hole.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I could either put something nested in it or put something behind it
Cool.
or not hide something. So I'm always looking for things that are not solid as well. But pretty much I'll take anything if it's right. I'm not particular when it comes to that kind of stuff. And then in terms of not product, but inspiration that's a little less specific. Because I'm in New York, I'm surrounded by amazing things all the time, but it's so crowded and noisy and urban and overstimulating here that often when I go out, I seek out inspiration through things that are quieter.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, the rare times, it's been a long time, but the rare times that I take vacations, I usually choose to go someplace, say in the mountains
Mm-hmm.
or water also, but I tend to like sort of the mountain forest kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so I'm often looking for peace. I'm looking for stillness and quiet and green
Mm-hmm.
kind of nature. And that I find extremely inspiring. And it sort of shifts things for me when I come back.
Mm-hmm.
In New York City, I do spend a lot of time in Central Park, which is kind of our nature. And it's kind of crazy and busy there. And so
Right.
it's not like, a national park, mind
Right.
you. But relatively speaking, I can kind of seek that at home by doing that.
Right, yeah, it is, and there are little oases that you have in the city, but it's true. I like to go and be in nature when I go on vacation too. I mean, I love doing city visits, but it's like,
We talked about New Mexico earlier, and New Mexico has some of the most gorgeous wide open vistas when you drive.
mm,
between, say, Santa Fe and Taos. It's just, and New York is so closed in.
Yeah.
You look up and you never see stars. You always see buildings, and there, like many places, it's just so wide open.
Right.
And for me, I don't know, there's something. How do I say this? I guess I'll just say it. I'm really not a religious person at all, but I sort of find that I have sort of these sort of godlike religious awakenings in nature. It's sort of I sort of feel evidence of like a greater being.
Yeah.
When I just see the miracle of, say, the Grand Canyon,
right?
Something like that. Yeah.
That's for me. I'm totally with you on that. For me, it's the same thing. And I remember the first time I was at Zion National Park, I was like, if there's paradise as in a biblical sense, that's how I would imagine it. And I can see how, I can see it, like how that, it was just touching and like very, like it makes you very small and humble and also grateful in a way when you're in this nature and you're like, wow, I'm just such a little short piece, speck.
I'm a piece of rust.
Right, exactly. There it goes, right? So that's pretty amazing. That's true. So Seth, when you go, besides like, as I asked before, like putting all your stuff into your pockets when you travel, but how do you take note? Do you write something? Do you sketch? Do you do some art while you're traveling? Or is that more like, nah, I just want to read and relax? Or
that's really good questions, and it varies, and it varies depending upon when you ask me. So in the past, so when I say in the past, I mean, say from like, I don't know, 2000 to maybe 4 or 5 years ago, whenever I traveled, I would journal. I would create a travel book. So, for example, because I'm, in my small studio.
He can reach everything, guys, with just his arms.
I'm blowing up the dust on this. So this is a travel book I made when I was in Greece.
Cool.
And this was in 2008. And so all my travel books are really very different. But you can see, I don't know, maybe you can't see. So yeah, there's sort of flaps with the writing underneath. Cool. So what I do is I don't have the book. I find the book when I get home. I just bring the loose sheets of paper, and then I work on them when I'm there. This is how I used to do it. I loved that when I was actually in the space to be able to work on it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I often do when I travel, got some pockets and stuff. The other thing I do when I travel is I ask people who I'm with or I run into to write things. So I travel with a bunch of people, and I had each person kind of write a note or make some drawings or poems or whatever they wanted, so I could bring those people back with me as well. So
did you read that in my book? I'm not kidding you. That's in my book. That's what I used to do too.
Really?
Yeah, I'm kidding. I used to do journal. Okay, everyone does it. And I used to give it to people to write something in there.
I love it.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. You and I are the same person. Who knew?
It's the glasses. No.
So I used to do that all the time. But the truth is that now my travel is about teaching. It's about some sort of an event. And so I just don't have the luxury or the time. So what I sometimes do is I sometimes will write some notes. Sometimes I do have a journal that I bring with me all the time, but my journal is not a traditional journal. It's more like sort of an art journal. So it's rare that I write in it, is what I mean. So it wouldn't have a list of what I did or my experiences. It's more visual based. So sometimes I'll do that, but and sometimes I'll just type on my phone if I want to remember things. But what I've done this year, because I missed that, I started a project that I call the Artifacts Project, and it's basically I wanted to journal about every single day of the year about my art life. So, for example, if I had like a great experience in New York that had to do with family, I would not be putting that in there. But like I will journal about what we did today. We do this interview, and that will go in the book.
Cool.
So that has brought me back, and I've been loving it. But I'll be truthful and say that while I am journaling about every day, I am not journaling every day.
Mm-hmm.
When I travel, I do bring it with me, and hopefully I'll have a couple hours in the hotel room. So I've been madly working on it. It's right here. And I just finished the early part of April. So I'm just about a month and a half behind.
Cool.
Which actually I'm happy about.
Yeah.
And when I went away last to teach, I brought it, and I had the first day I got there, I arrived at about 3, and I didn't have to be teaching until the next day. And from about 5 o'clock until 9 that night, I just sat for 4 hours and I worked in it.
Nice.
Loved it.
That's a great idea. I love that. I might have to do this and join you.
It's on. It's like a group project online. So
oh, cool.
Send me pictures and I'll post them on my blog.
So you have a group and people share their entries and cool.
It's very loose. So some people did January and haven't done more. Some people did January and April. Just whatever you can do. And truthfully, I don't say this out loud much, but as long as you have one page, if you do one page a month, that's enough to send.
Right.
For proof that you did it.
Right.
How about you though? Do you
I used to do the journal thing as you did too, as I said. I do more like a little art journal and a sketchbook now. I don't write as much anymore, and I'm not really sure. I have been thinking about that a lot, actually, why I don't write that much anymore. Like I will write like little notes that like I don't want to forget, like certain ideas or thoughts, but not like in the sense of journaling really. Like, I used to like write about someone that I met, or, a conversation or whatever would go into my travel journal. And I also used to write diaries, which I don't do anymore. And I think part of it is because I do art journaling, and a lot of what I think or what goes through my mind that I used to write about is there when I create something. So when I look at certain art journal pages or other projects or paintings, I kind of like now what happened while I was doing this, or what was like present in my memory, which might not be obvious for other people because I don't really journal in my art journal. Go figure, right? So yeah, I don't know, because I really like writing. Like when I was writing the book, I realized how much I actually enjoy writing, and I enjoy writing my blog. But I think maybe that is it. Maybe it is because I do so many other like writing a blog and writing on social media, and then you write articles sometimes, and you plan things for your workshop, that I'm kind of like, maybe I'm outwritten.
Right. Well, it's a new and different way.
Right.
To focus that. I also think when I think about when I used to do it, I tended to do it more when I was traveling for pleasure. Mm. And most of if not all my travel now is really work related. It's artwork, but it's still work related, and I think that just, for me, it lends itself less to that.
Yeah.
And that, like, when I think about it, like, hypothetically, if I was an accountant, which, I'd be an abysmal accountant, but if I were, like, I doubt I would journal about my accounting.
Right.
I'm just thinking, but if I were an accountant and I went, away for the weekend, maybe that's when I would journal. So I'm almost thinking, for me, part of it is that it's also because my travel is work related.
Right.
So it doesn't lend itself in the same way, like as something that's pure pleasure would.
Right. That makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I want to have one last question, because I could talk to you forever, but I know that maybe that it's going to get too long. For my book, you created a piece that you called Ephemeral Discoveries.
Yes.
Said in a German accent.
I like it.
Can you tell us what inspired it? I will put it into the interview that everyone can see it shortly.
Okay. That is a piece that, although I made it specifically for the book, I consider it part of a series that I've been working on, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years. That it's a series that I call Passages. Mm-hmm. And it's to do with concepts of time and age and sort of passing through, whether it's passing through life, whether it's passing through a place. So I thought that for the purposes of the book, because this was about kind of artful adventures, that's kind of what a sort of a passage is. And for me, the art itself is an adventure. And then I think that because the objects, most of it were found objects, they were found all over the places on my travels. It just seemed to really fit with the nature of what you were creating in your book. And the title, Ephemeral Discoveries, comes from two things. It literally comes from the fact that there's some vintage book pages in there, and those words are within the text that's in the piece. But more this idea that, sort of ephemera, sort of things that, like, there's two different ways in my mind you can look at ephemera. In some ways, ephemera are things that sort of disappear.
Yeah.
But it's also things like bus tickets or ephemera, things that are sort of, like in theory not so important and just basically disappear. And so this idea of travel and adventure, that what you really do is you have this moment. It's a moment in time that ends. So in a manner of speaking, it does disappear, but it elicits a discovery that often changes things. It might be a discovery, like a physical discovery, like this object came from that place, but a lot of times it's more of a personal discovery or discovery about an experience that you've had that might shift things, how you think or what you do. And so I thought that putting all that together, that it was kind of the direction that would work really, really well.
Yeah. It is an outstanding piece. I'm looking to the side because I have it on my other monitor. So I really love it.
It's your screensaver.
Yeah. No.
Remember those?
There you go. Yeah, I do. Yeah. No, I really, there's so much texture and like so many different materials on there. And you're like, it's almost like a Rauschenberg.
Ooh.
Wait, no, I mean, like, it's like when you look at Rauschenberg, it's like the same feeling where you're like, like, every time I look at it, I discover something new that I haven't, like, really, discovered before. And you're like, wow, that's so cool. So, yeah, thank you so much for contributing this amazing piece.
I thank you for that compliment. And, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
So, Seth, last question. Is there anything you would like to add? So do you have any classes, something that's coming up you want to tell our viewers about?
I have about 3,000 classes.
Right.
I think what I would just say in terms of things that are coming up is that one of the things that I've been doing in the last year or two that I'm going to do more of are collaborative teaching events. I just love the experience that I get when I teach with another person. It kind of shifts things. And I also love the fact that I think students kind of get so much out of it. So I have a whole bunch coming up. I have a whole bunch planned for next year. A lot of the ones I'm lucky this year are filled, but there's one coming up this year and one coming up next year that I'm going to plug really quickly. So in November, I have the amazing experience to teach in Vermont, at a place called the Trapp Family Lodge. And I'm teaching with two other artists. I'm teaching one with Connie Friedman, who's an amazing artist. If you don't know her, you probably do know her. She's been all over the Somerset Studio magazine. She's been on the covers, things like that. And also Angela Cartwright. And if you don't know Angela Cartwright is a visual artist who, in a former life, was quite a famous actress. She was Penny in Lost in Space. She was a Make Room for Daddy, and she was one of the kids in Sound of Music. So that's the connection with the Trapp Family Lodge. That's where the Trapp family went when they came to the United States. So I'm really excited about that. That's in November. And then one that no one knows about, really. Well, yeah, few people know about Keisha DeVeni. I don't know if people know Keisha, but if you do, great. If you don't, get to know her. She and I are going to be doing a really cool workshop in Portland, Oregon next year in April. I won't tell you too much about it, but I'm really excited. It's a little bit of a different direction, and I think it's going to be cool. But cool. You can just go to SethApter.com and go to my workshop page and see everything that I'm doing.
Cool. Thank you so much, Seth. I will link your website up and check him out. Check out his Facebook page too. which is Altered Page, if I'm not wrong, right?
Third page, yep, yep.
So, and yeah, thank you very much, Seth.
That's the book. It's I'm biased because I'm talking to the famous writer, but it's special. It's different. What I was saying to Natalie really quick, I know we're running out of time and people are probably dropping off the interview like flies, but what I was saying to Natalie before is I get and see and read a lot of the books. There's so many books out there now. You guys all know that. It's just like with art. It's very hard to find something individual and unique. I'm not saying the other books are not good, but sometimes some of the books kind of have a flavor of some of the other books. And when I read this one, I got my copy about a week and a half ago. I was just blown away by the uniqueness of this book. It just brought something different to the table. It's so much education in it, which is amazing. But it has this just different flavor. It literally takes you around the world. It's hard to explain. But I'll talk about it on my blog soon. But definitely, it's worth your while to get it.
Oh, thank you. That makes me blush.
Oh, thank you for inviting me to be part of it.
Thank you so much, Seth. And I hope I see you in person soon, because we usually don't see each other much.
I know, once or twice a year.
Right.
We're going to go to the exhibit in the city.
We will do that. I can't wait. Okay, thank you, Seth. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.